Great, let's get started. Good evening. My name is Yatin Chu, and I'm co-president of Place NYC. Welcome to our event. Place NYC is the fastest growing all-volunteer parent advocacy group. This evening, we will hear from 3 of the leading candidates running to be our next governor. Our elected leaders, including the governor, decide on funding, curriculum, and accountability for the education that our children get in their classrooms. I hope many of you will vote in the June primary and then in November for our next governor. And we hope that tonight's event will help inform your decision. Each candidate will have 30 minutes to share their platform and views on education. We will hear from Rob Astorino, Tom Suozzi, and Lee Zeldin. This event is being recorded and will be posted on the Place NYC YouTube channel for those who can't make it tonight. Lastly, I want to just say thank you to the parent volunteers on the Place NYC Elections Working Group who made this event possible. I now turn this over to Craig Slutskin, who will be the moderator for our first one-on-one. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And my name is Craig Slutskin. I'm a native New Yorker, currently living in Manhattan with a son currently in kindergarten. And I'm a member of the executive board of Place NYC. It's my pleasure to help moderate tonight's forum. We're going to start off tonight with Rob Astorino, the former Westchester County executive and current candidate for the Republican Party's nomination for governor. Welcome, Mr. Astorino.
Thank you.
I'd like to start off tonight by letting you introduce yourself to our viewers. So if you'd like to take a couple of minutes and just tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. I will not take a half hour. So I first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. I really do appreciate it. And I am in Westchester. I was Westchester County executive for 8 years. So my wife is a public school teacher in New York City, believe it or not. And I have been on the school board in my town. So we're both education oriented. My kids, my son graduated from a private Catholic school and goes to college. And our daughters go to public schools here in Westchester. So, I'm in the thick of it. I've had to deal with all this pandemic nonsense of, how it affected our kids and the lockdowns, the remote learning, and, all this kind of stuff. So we've been having to deal with that for the last 2 years as parents, and certainly raising kids and dealing with all the issues. You have a kindergartner, so, I don't envy that. That's tougher times. At least, 2 of mine drive now, so it's a little easier. Go pick up the third. So definitely in the thick of things. And I ran for and won here in Westchester as county executive, which is like mayor, I guess, the chief elected official in Westchester. Westchester, for those of you who don't know, you might be like, oh, that's upstate. And it is a deep blue county. Donald Trump lost Westchester by 37 points. It was one of the worst counties in all of New York for him. So it is a very deep blue county, home of Hillary Clinton, obviously. And yet I was elected here in Westchester by double digits twice. And it wasn't just a coalition of Republicans. It was Democrats and independents. I speak Spanish. So, we had huge Hispanic support and African-American support where we got 25% of the vote and new immigrants. So in order for me to govern in New York, I have to govern like I governed in Westchester, which is bipartisan. I had a county board, which was a Democratic majority. So everything we did, we kind of did together. We didn't all get what we wanted, but we actually sat down and talked. And yeah, we disagreed at times and I had to veto things, but we were fiscally disciplined. But we also did a lot of different things environmentally. And so I'm proud of my record in Westchester for those 2 terms and 8 years. I just think New York is completely out of whack right now. New York City clearly is chaotic. It's dangerous. People are moving out in droves. Same thing in New York State. It's become completely unaffordable. It's become completely unbalanced. The control right now in Albany is just, to me, way too far to one side, to the left. And I just think people want balance. They want sensibility. They want some normalcy back in their lives. They want to be able to afford to live here. They want safe places to go and be able to walk around. And we're just not getting that anymore. So, I'm running for governor, and I think we've got a real shot at winning this year. because of the coalitions that we're building, because we have people who don't traditionally vote Republican, but this time they're saying, you know what, I'm willing to listen. I want someone normal. I want someone sensible. And I just want to stop the crazy train from keep going. And so, you know, I've got the executive experience, and I certainly have, well, I ran against Cuomo, for those of you might remember, in 2014, and literally gave him the race of his life. We came closer to him than he's had in any of his 7 statewide elections. And, you know, as a Republican, I won the entire state outside of New York City. I won it by 3 points. And New York City was tough. You know, we got to get to about 30% this November. That's very doable, especially with all the issues we're dealing with right now and in New York City. You know, I'll be a partner with Eric Adams. We may not agree on a lot of different things, but I think New York City is clearly the engine that runs New York. And right now, things are not going well.
Sorry, I'd like to just get to some questions, so I apologize for
Sure.
cutting you off. So we do have some questions for you tonight, formulated by Place NYC and from our members' input. Please take 2 or 3 minutes for each question. If I do ask you to wrap up, it's only because I'd like to get to as many topics as we can.
Sure.
Let's start off with a question on standards. New York spends more per pupil than any other state, but achieves results that many feel simply do not match this investment. Pupils' attainment in math and ELA is a year or 2 behind the equivalents in other developed countries. How do we raise standards so that our children aren't left behind in the global market of the 21st century?
Couple of things. First of all, during this pandemic, what we've seen is the inequity has grown even larger, where you have lower income families were hit the hardest because of the lockdowns and the school closures, and the distance learning, the remote learning was really atrocious. There was empirical evidence how farther behind now our Black and Hispanic children have gotten because of this. On the other end, we've got higher achieving kids who are basically being held back by this whole equity agenda and what I think is complete nonsense. We should be excelling in the classroom and pushing kids to excel. And by the way, patting them on the back when they do, celebrating it when they do, getting them prepared for college or wherever the second part of their life will be once they become an adult, and giving the tools to do that. Not bringing down those who are achieving, not watering down our tests, not saying SATs are bad, you know, not closing down gifted and talented programs or our specialized high schools. All of these should be good in options. I also very much agree with charter schools. I don't think we should have a cap, quite frankly. I don't. And the fact that we've got 52,000 kids in New York City, most of them minority students who are on a waiting list, proves that parents want that choice. And I think what has been taken from parents during this whole pandemic, by the way, has been choice. And so I would agree with lifting that cap. I would do away with it altogether if I can, and I will fight for that. But also things like the education investment tax credit, you know, where that's giving parents or people an opportunity to be able to donate and write it off. But that tax credit can help our parochial and private schools and will not take away from public education. And I don't think it's an even or thing. I don't think, you know, in order to support charter schools or private schools or parochial that you've got to take from public education. No, you don't. But I do think we need more accountability, and that's what we're not getting. And I think the teachers' unions have had much too much power. And also, I do think there's got to be accountability in our elected officials, because right now they go like this. Nobody's in charge of education in reality. Nobody. And you've got a board of regents, you've got SUNY trustees, you've got a governor who says it's not my fault. You've got a mayor now finally in charge, though, in the city. And I do agree with mayoral control. Whether you like the mayor, whoever's there or not, somebody has to be in charge and accountable to the people.
Thank you. There are 8 specialized high schools in New York City that use the SHSAT examination. Do you support keeping the Heck-Calandra law, which enshrines the SAT as a sole metric for admissions to the 3 original specialized high schools in New York City? And if the legislature voted to repeal Heck-Calandra, would you veto it?
I would. I think, look, I think it could be expanded, actually. I think that could be pegged to one thing, but that should not be replaced totally. That, you know, if it's only SAT scores, I don't know if that's necessarily helpful, but I do want high achieving people to be able to go there, and I want opportunities for everybody. So what I don't want, I think Calandra should stay in place, but it can be expanded perhaps. But I do think we're having this dumbing down right now of almost shaming people or groups who are actually achieving, investing in education, parents who may even work a second or third job so their kids can go to a better school. And the bad schools that we have, and there are plenty of them, there's no accountability. The rules have been lessened. You misbehave in class and don't worry about it. No suspensions, no repercussions. The teachers' unions clearly are running the show. That has to stop. And there needs to be more parental voice and in our education system. And again, it really does come down to accountability. There is none right now in New York. Everybody can blame somebody else, and nobody, including the governor, is accountable to anybody right now in our education system in New York.
So just to pin you down, for the 3 original specialized high schools, Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, and Brooklyn Tech, do you agree or disagree that the SHSAT should be the sole determinant of admission?
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you. Moving along, you've mentioned the teachers union several times, and I want to touch upon that for a moment. The teachers union has had an outsized impact on school closures and COVID restrictions in the past 2 years. And while much of the interface between the UFT and New York City is through Mayor Adams, what role do you see yourself having with the teachers unions?
Well, I don't think they're going to endorse me, nor would I really want their endorsement. Okay. And I think you have to break free from that. And I'm not seeking it. I don't really want it. And I think that's a good thing, because when I get elected, I won't have these chains around me like right now almost every Democratic legislator or city council member has. They are literally beholden to the teachers unions, who completely fund everything that they do. You can't make decisions that are in the best interest of our families and our kids if you're being told what to do. And they are being told what to do. So, I'm an outspoken proponent of charter schools. I just said that. The teachers unions hate charter schools because they're public schools. They do get some public dollars, but of course they don't have to be unionized. They're not, and they have different rules, and they're succeeding. And so I think that's a threat to them. So the teachers unions, we don't necessarily agree eye to eye on many, many things.
Did you work with them when you were the Westchester County executive? How was that relationship?
Each school district was different. So it's not like like in New York City, there is one school district, you have the UFT, and it's very different, or nice. In Westchester, every school district is separate. It's autonomous. So they have their own contract negotiations, their own rules. So as county executive, I really had more input with, for instance, Westchester Community College, which we partially fund. But on a district by district role, that's really up to the elected school board members and their superintendents.
Okay. I want to shift gears a bit, and I want to move to the issue of public safety.
Mm-hmm.
A topic of great concern to many of our viewers, as you can expect. Former Governor Cuomo and the legislature enacted bail reform, which has been, to say the least, controversial. Will you as governor amend bail reform to allow judges to have more discretion? And how would you accomplish this given the lack of interest by legislative leaders to do so?
I am absolutely opposed to the no cash bail law that we have here. It needs to be repealed. The governor of New York can do that. And I'll tell you the power that the governor has as the executive, especially not only the power of persuasion, but through the budget. Through the budget process by Constitution and by Pataki versus Silver from 1995, which affirmed the governor's real authority in the budget process. As Cuomo has done, as Hochul has done, as really a lot of governors, their priorities oftentimes go through the budget process because the legislature is weakened during that time and kind of can only say up or down. So it can be repealed. It must be repealed. Judicial discretion, dangerousness, that needs to be taken into account. Look what's going on in the city. What drives me crazy is you're hearing the talking points from the Democratic officials saying, oh, this is just Republicans using scare tactics. And they literally cherry picked one line out of the crime stats that said, well, there's only like a 1% recidivism rate for somebody who gets out of no cash bail. That is completely and utter nonsense. It's over 40% because they weren't counting second, third, fourth, fifth arrests. So it absolutely has gone from point A to point B on this no cash bail. That has got to go. The whole narrative of cops are bad, criminals need to be coddled, victims need to be shamed. Another thing that's not really mentioned about this whole no cash bail law is the accompanying whole part of that legislation, which was the discovery. And what we're having also is, forget prosecutors like Alvin Bragg that refuse to, prosecute crimes he doesn't like. He should be fired, and the governor has that authority under Article 13, Section 13 of the Constitution to remove officials like Alvin Bragg who refuse to enforce the law. And Hochul should do that if he continues to do what he says he'll do. So part of the discovery is all this new evidence, information on witnesses and crime victims must be given to the defense within 2.5 weeks. That's having a chilling effect. It's also nearly impossible for the prosecutors, the DAs, to get a lot of this information that they have to get over to the defense. So what's happening is crimes are not being prosecuted, and they're cutting plea bargains. That also is having a major effect, which isn't getting discussed. So all of this needs to be fixed. And right now, New York is a mess. And anyone who says it's not, whether you're a victim of a crime is one thing, but a lot of people right now don't even feel safe. And that in and of itself is bad for the economy. Nobody wants to live in a place or go to a place to work where they don't feel safe. And that is certainly the case, as well as the major crimes, which are increasing everywhere, not just in New York City, around our state, but also in the suburbs. Crime is up in the suburbs as well.
How do you try to enact those changes, given that Leader Cousins and Speaker Hasty have shown no interest in amending the bail reform laws? Again,
it could either be done by separate legislation. If they wouldn't do that, then it would be done in my first budget, which is probably where I will do it next February. When I submit the budget to the legislature, that budget language to change and fund all the criminal justice in our state, that's where the legislature would really have their back against the wall, and we could get things done like repealing or modifying no cash bail. Look, I think the intent may have been good. I don't want a first offender that was arrested for, smoking pot or some minor nonviolent crime to be rotting away at Rikers. That's none of us want that. But it has become obvious that what they may have intended is not working out. And when you have violent criminals who have rap sheets, 20 pages long, are right back on the street. Another thing is something like raise the age, where you had 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds who could have been prosecuted and charged as adults are now not. So they know at 18, their record's going to be expunged for the most part. So now they're being recruited by gangs and drug dealers, violent crime. They get caught with a gun. They know, they're going to be out. Most they'll do is 2 years, if that. So that also has to be completely revamped.
Thank you. I'd like to move to a lightning round, and I'd ask you to keep your answers to a yes or no, although I have a feeling that won't happen, so I'll ask you to keep them to a sentence or two.
Okay.
Should all school districts screen children for gifted and talented programs, essentially moving from opt-out to opt-in? So all students would do it unless their parents or guardians say, don't test them.
Say that again. I just want to make sure I get that one right.
Sure. Should all school districts screen children for gifted and talented programs? So all students get tested unless their parents say, don't test them. Right now, it's the opposite. You have to opt in. This would be an opt-out.
That's a good one. I need to learn more about that. I'm a big parental choice guy. I think ultimately the parents have to make the decision, yes or no.
Okay. Are you in favor of keeping Common Core as the standard of education?
I don't like Common Core. I don't like the way it was developed, and it was in many cases not age appropriate in the curriculum that it's doing.
Sorry, my light went off. Sorry. Should CUNY be free for all?
City University of New York?
Yeah, should it be free for all students?
I think right now, I think CUNY is affordable for the most part. I think most do qualify for aid. I have a problem. Once we start getting into free this, free that, it kind of gets away from us very quickly. So probably no.
Okay. Do you support keeping Regents exams as a means to graduate high school? So
I support Regents exams. I think it's important. So I would say yes, but I do think there needs to be other ways for people, because my wife is a special education teacher. So not everybody can take a Regents exam and be able to, we have IEPs that are important and other avenues for kids.
Should the school year be extended?
I'm going to lose the kid vote now if I say yes. So I would be the most unpopular person at my dining room table. I don't think we need to extend the school year. I would probably say no to that.
Do you support congestion pricing?
No, absolutely, positively not. That will push the traffic to other areas. It will make it unaffordable for our small businesses and commuters coming in. It will have just the opposite effect. It has not had a real positive effect in London, and it's done nothing but drive up costs. So no, I will not in favor of that.
Should the Mario Cuomo Bridge's name be reverted to the Tappan Zee?
That's what we call a slam dunk. The answer is absolutely, positively yes. At 12:01, right after I take the oath of office, that probably is the first thing I'm going to do, is move that bridge back to what it should be, Tappan Zee.
What was your favorite lunch food in grade school?
Peanut butter and jelly. I still eat it.
Classic. Thank you. So we do have some time for additional questions. Governor Hochul removed mask mandates in schools earlier this week, and Mayor Adams is expected to follow suit in New York City schools starting next week. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that this has been a highly contested topic amongst parents, guardians, teachers, etc., with many lauding and many criticizing the removal of these mandates. Assuming Mayor Adams does remove the mask mandate in the city school system, how, as a leader, would you assuage the fears of many skeptics and advocate that removing the mandate is in fact appropriate at this time? And as part of that, would you mandate COVID vaccinations?
I would not mandate COVID vaccinations. Your COVID vaccination status affects you and only you. It obviously, and the CDC now admits this, it does not stop the spread, nor do the masks, by the way. We know that, and we have known that through the science, and the CDC has admitted that. So no, I am not in favor of these mandates. I think they've been very destructive. What we should have done is had a balance in New York, like many other states and countries, where you have public health concerns with civil liberties as well as the economy. And we got rid of the first two. We got rid of civil liberties and the economy and went total public health, which obviously is important. But no, I would not. And today, these masks obviously should have been taken off months and months and months ago. So make it optional. Look, if somebody wants to wear a mask, I don't care. But, don't force kids who are infinitesimally small risk to getting COVID and spreading it. And if adult, most of whom are vaccinated, is uncomfortable, then, I think they've got bigger issues, quite frankly. But I think everyone should be respected. Nobody should be shamed if they are or aren't wearing it. But no, these mandates have been, in my view, very destructive.
Thank you. A college for all.
And by the way, anyone who lost their job should never have lost their job, and they should be hired back.
A college for all has been the goal for some time, but some are starting to question this. Many students who may not be prepared enroll but drop out within 2 years of college. What are your thoughts on college readiness and career readiness?
I think that college should be a goal, but it shouldn't be mandatory, nor should every kid go to college. That's not what their life skills are, a 4-year college. But there are a lot of different opportunities. I do think like the trades and skilled labor is in, short supply, which means people could have a really good life doing that. And I think college, look, I went to Fordham University. My wife has a master's from college. So, we're sending our kids to school. My son is at Iona right now. My daughter's getting ready. She wants to have a career in occupational therapy. So that's the route that they're going to take. But not every kid is going to be equipped in life to go to college. And I don't think that should be mandatory in any way. So every child is separate and unique.
Thank you. So that concludes my questions, but I'm going to allow you another minute and just allow you to give some concluding remarks if you'd like.
Sure. So anyway, look, thank you. I love doing these forums. I'd be happy to do it again anytime. Hopefully, everyone follow me on social media. And, I just think we can win. I can win this year. And I invite people of all different political stripes to join my team and and be part of it, because that's how I won in Westchester. That's how I governed in Westchester. That's what we're going to do in New York. And I'm excited. And again, I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for participating tonight. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Anytime. Thanks. Tell Tom I said hi.
We absolutely will. I will now pass the forum over to my co-moderator,
Heidi Astorino. How are you, buddy?
Hey, Tom.
Nice to see you.
Heidi, I'm passing it over to you now. Thank you, Mr. Astorino.
Okay.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everybody. My name is Heidi Chan-Sarantopoulos. I am on the executive committee of Place NYC. I'm also a board member of the Greek School of Plato. I'm a small business owner and a concerned parent from Brooklyn. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Congressman Tom Suozzi. Did I say that right, Tom?
Suozzi, yes, you did. Very good.
Suozzi, sorry about that.
Thank you, Heidi.
No problem.
Your name not easy either.
Minutes?
Sarantopoulos.
Yep, exactly.
That's a Greek name.
It is. My husband is Greek.
Well, tell him Suozzi's Axios. Ask him what that means.
You got it. You got it. So can you take a couple minutes to introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm really happy to be with you guys. I'm running for governor of New York, and I think when people are looking at the governor, they're going to look at three things. One, who's a proven executive? I'm trained as a CPA and attorney. I worked for Arthur Anderson & Company. I clerked for the Chief Judge of the Eastern District. I worked for Sherman and Sterling. I was the mayor of my hometown for 8 years. I was the county executive of Nassau County for 8 years. I turned the place around. Nassau County's budget is larger than 11 states in the United States of America. I used to joke with Bill Clinton that my budget was bigger in Nassau County than his budget was when he was governor of Arkansas. He said, I know. Anyway, then I was worked for Lazard Frere and did some other stuff. And now I've been in Congress for the past 5 years. And I'm giving it up to try and change the world and help New York State because it's falling apart. So I'm a proven executive, number one. Number two, I'm a common sense Democrat. I've always been a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I've got all great rankings from the Democrats, but I'm sick of the far left and I'm sick of the far right and I'm sick of everybody fighting with each other. I want to work together as I always have in my career with anybody. I'll work with Democrats. I'll work with Republicans. I'll work with progressives. I'll work with moderates. I'll work with conservatives. I'll work with anybody to find the solutions to get the job done and help people. In Congress, I'm the vice chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus. 29 Democrats, 29 Republicans working together to find common ground. We do it all the time. That's how we passed the infrastructure bill in Washington, D.C., the biggest investment in infrastructure in the nation in 4 presidents. And third, what are my big issues? My big issues are crime, taxes, the environment, and troubled schools. And so this is a great group for me to talk to. I totally support the Gifted and Talented program. We should expand the Gifted and Talented program. And I'll answer any questions that you have. Oh, the last thing is that everybody's like, why are you risking giving up Congress? You're on Ways and Means. You got this big, important job, and it is a great honor, great responsibility for a long shot to run for governor, because I'm sick and tired of everybody fighting with each other, because everybody's leaving New York State. I had 45 members of Congress in New York State when I was born, 45 members in 1962. I'm 59. Today, we have 27 members. It's going down to 26, and we're going to keep on losing people if we don't figure out how to address crime, taxes, and our schools. So I feel so strong. And my Democratic Party, I don't feel like is talking about the real things that people care about. I think people care about crime and taxes and schools, and they don't want to hear all this theoretical business. They want to know, what are you going to do to help me and my family to make things better? That's what I'm going to do, as I've been doing my entire career. Okay.
Well, thank you for your service. I have a couple questions for you so we can get to know you a bit better.
Thank you.
New York spends more per student than any other state, but they achieve near average nationally, with NYC students scoring below New York State students. Our students' attainment in math and ELA is 1 to 2 years behind their counterparts in developed countries. How do we raise standards so that our children aren't left behind in the global market of the 21st century?
So one of the big problems in New York State is everything is mandated. We have more mandates than any other state in the United States of America. And those mandates restrict teachers, administrators, school boards to run schools the way they want to run them. And they also cost a lot more money to comply with them, and they waste a lot of time filling out a bunch of paperwork and complying with the state mandates. My theory is change the mandates to guidelines. We'll get better performance and we'll actually reduce costs in the process. And schools that do well based upon graduation rates, based upon test scores, based upon different metrics, you can look at what your performance is, leave them alone. let them continue to do what they're doing. And for those schools that are troubled schools that need help, send in special teams to go help those troubled schools to turn them around. Now, one of my biggest issues, troubled schools, which I know this is a bit more, your group is more focused on gifted and talented programs, but troubled schools they're all over the place in New York State. And the problem is not money, and the problem is not even academics. The problem is social problems. We need to take all of our social services, existing social services, funded by the federal, state, and local governments and not-for-profits, and drive them into our schools to help children at a young age that can't possibly succeed in school. If you look at third grade test scores in the best school district, the most at-risk school district, they're very similar. But by eighth grade, the good school districts are soaring, and the at-risk school districts, the kids have fallen off the face of the earth. The problems of life manifest themselves at very young ages. And the answer is to bring social services, existing programs, into those schools. I love Eric Adams' comment that he takes from Bishop Tutu. We spent a lifetime pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and stop them from falling in the river in the first place. That's my exact same philosophy. I endorsed Eric Adams very early on. He asked me to serve as his deputy mayor. I said, I'm not going to be your deputy mayor. I'm running for governor. If I become the governor, I can help you, and I can help New York City a lot more in that position than I could as your deputy mayor. So I am very focused on helping troubled school districts by getting social services into those schools to help turn those schools around. 75% of the people in jail have a drug, alcohol, or mental health issue. 50% of the people at Rikers Island have a learning disability. Most of society's dysfunction, crime, poverty, homelessness, domestic violence, whatever it is, they come from the failed experiences of children that bring those into adulthood. And too much of our society is based upon emergencies in adult life as opposed to prevention early on. So there's a lot of different things we can do. Mandates to guidelines is one of my big things to reduce cost and to provide incentives for schools to do creative things to help lift kids up, and bringing social services into troubled schools like community schools, Harlem Children's Zone. What's his name, ran for mayor? Ray McGuire had this whole from cradles to careers. So I believe in that kind of stuff. Gotcha.
Our group does advocate for education overall, but we do have, we do look at the SHSAT, and we are concerned about it. There are 8 specialized high schools in New York City now that use it as a metric. Do you support keeping Calandra and using that test as the sole metric for admissions to the specialized high schools?
Yes. I mean, I'd consider other things, but I believe in gifted and talented programs and specialized tests. The fact that it's only done at this very young age and not later on is a concern. I'd consider other things as well, but I like the idea of gifted and talented programs, and we should expand them.
Okay, if the legislature does repeal Heck Calandra, would you consider vetoing that bill?
Yes.
Thank you. The teachers union has had an outsized impact on school closures and COVID restrictions in the past 2 years. What role do you see yourself having with the teachers union? If you were
Listen, I want to work with the teachers union. I believe in working with the teachers union. I was a county executive and a mayor. I had to negotiate with unions. I fought with a lot of unions, quite frankly, as well. But even those same people that I used to fight with are now saying that this is my time and that I should do it because I was always honest and straightforward and respectful to people, even when I was tough negotiating against them. So I would work with the teachers union. But the bottom line is they didn't even interview me before they endorsed Kathy Hochul, because the whole establishment thing in New York State is working against all of us. I say to people, Kathy Hochul raised $20 million in a shorter period of time than any governor before her. Before Cuomo or Pataki or Spitzer, she raised $20 million in a short period of time. Is that because people are saying, oh, I'm so inspired by Kathy Hochul, the great ideas she has for the future of our state, all these wonderful things? No, it's all an insider thing, which is what's killing our state, making crime go up, making taxes the highest in the country, and not fixing our troubled schools for generations. So I'll work with the teachers union, but I'm not pandering to anybody and I'm not backing down to anybody. So I'll work with everybody, but I will fight for what I think is best for the people.
One thing that the governor was very strict on is mask mandates and vaccine passports. So what conditions would you consider mandating masking or vaccines for attending schools?
You know, I wouldn't mandate vaccines, and I would be very hesitant to mandate masks again, because, like I got my chief of staff, he's got little kids. He's got a daughter who's like in second grade. She's been wearing a mask since kindergarten. How do you think that helps with phonics? Help. Well, you can't even see the face. I mean, socializing with other kids. So I think that, it's gone on for too long and we have to be very, very careful. Now, could it be circumstances where we get some dreaded variant that comes up again that we have to consider it? Yes, but I'd be very hesitant to do it. I'm a very big believer in that we have to market vaccines. We have to market masks. We have to sell the idea to people. We can't force it down their throats. That's why you have to be a good leader. A leader has to listen to all these different voices. You listen to all your health experts over here. You listen to your economic experts over here. You listen to your education experts, your small business experts. You listen to your political consultants. You have to take all these different messages and you have to condense them into a plan and then lay out a plan to the people and to other elected officials and say, if we follow my plan, we'll get through this together. If you just do a press conference on a Friday and say we have a mask mandate starting on a Monday, you'll end up with 40 counties out of 62 that said they won't even enforce it because you didn't sell it to the public as part of a plan and you didn't sell it to other elected officials. So we should be doing a lot more with like celebrities and with doctors and hospitals trying to educate people about what's best for them and then help convince them what's the best thing for them. But in this fractured environment we have in our country right now with the whole, Republican versus Democrat on masks and mandates, I mean, it's so destructive. We should be instead trying to sell people on it and bring people to what the answer is based upon all these conflicting messages, not forcing it down people's throats. It's too divisive a time in history.
Yeah, just switching gears a little bit. As crime stats continue to rise in New York, tourism and the economy continue to be impacted. If elected, what actions would you take to combat the sharp upward trend of crime in New York City?
I have a 15-point crime intervention and prevention plan. I'm 100% aligned with Mayor Adams. It's terrible that he went up to Albany to try and fix bail reform and they gave him the stiff arm and said, we need more data. Well, look at the data of the people getting killed in the streets and the children being shot. So I want to give judges discretion to look at dangerousness like they have in every other state in the United States of America, like they have in the federal government. The judges have that authority. We have to have that in New York State. I believe in precision policing, of using intelligence and trained officers to go out and do stop, question, and frisk when it makes sense, in where you have the information on it and the cops are properly trained to do it the right way. I believe in so much shot spotters, gun buyback programs, and my long-term prevention, intervention stuff we got to do right now to prevent crime from happening. And we have to be tough about it. We have to get the expand Kendra's law and give cops and social workers and families the ability to get homeless people off the streets because they're a danger to themselves and they're a danger to society. We have this thing called the red flag law, but nobody's using it, where families and social workers and cops can identify somebody who's got a mental instability and they actually own a gun. It used to be you couldn't take the gun away, but now you can go through court and take the guns away from people. So I've got a very detailed intervention and prevention plan. And prevention, my whole schools plan that I talked about earlier about bringing social services into schools is a long-term thing, but you need to do immediate intervention and long-term prevention. So that's a very big issue for me. The prerequisite to prosperity is public safety. And people are afraid to take the subways. They're afraid to take the commuter rails, quite frankly, to go into Penn Station. And we cannot get people coming back to work, and we cannot bring our economy back if people are scared. And right now, my daughter's living in the city right now. I lived in the city from 84 to 91. I remember what it was like. I used to supervise a homeless kitchen. A homeless shelter. I would sleep overnight to supervise a homeless shelter on the Upper West Side when I was going to Fordham Law School. And I made sandwiches for the soup kitchen. I'm very passionate about this issue. But my daughter was like walking two kids to school the other day. She lives in around Stuyvesant Town, was bringing kids to school, and some guy chased her down the street with the two little kids. And my running mate, Diana Reyna, who was the former deputy borough president to Eric Adams and was a city councilwoman for 12 years in Brooklyn, will be the first Latino elected statewide in the history of New York State when she becomes lieutenant governor. Her niece got her hair pulled by some guy on the streets the other day. So people are scared, and we have to take very strong action to intervene and to prevent for the long-term future.
Thank you. I want to move to a lightning round of questions. Please keep your answers to yes or no if you can.
Okay.
Do you support lifting the cap on charter schools?
No, but I would change so you could take the upstate numbers that are not being utilized and use them in the city. I'd get rid of the subcap.
Okay.
You can have more schools in the city, but not increase the cap overall.
Okay. Do you support keeping the Regents test as a means to graduate high school?
Yes. I mean, I didn't take the Regents. I went to Chaminade All Boys Catholic High School, so we didn't have to take the Regents, but I support the Regents. I support the idea of having a test, yeah.
Do you support mayoral control of schools?
Absolutely.
Do you support congestion pricing?
You know, I was one of the first people to talk about congestion pricing back in 2006. I do like the idea of congestion pricing. I just don't think it's a good time for it right now.
Are you in favor of keeping Common Core as a standard of education?
We have to reevaluate the whole way of testing, and we have to bring everybody in and start all over again. It's the whole process was corrupted because it was jammed down everybody's throat, and we have to refigure out how can we have standards that we can actually monitor performance and we can have accountability, but it's got to be repackaged in a way that brings everybody together on board with getting it done.
Should CUNY be free for all?
I would like that to happen, but we already have the highest taxes in the United States of America, so we'd have to figure out how we could accomplish that.
Okay. Should the school year be extended?
I would consider extending the school year and like making it optional for people, especially in troubled schools. I don't know that I would mandate it for the entire state, but I would like to have more services available, especially for troubled schools.
Should all school districts screen children for G&T, gifted and talented programs?
Say again?
Should all school districts screen children for gifted and talented? Instead of a opt-in test, to make it that every kid should take the test and see if they qualify, yes.
Yeah, I would consider that, yeah. I would listen to your opinion on that one and on the Regents one. I'd like to hear what you guys say about that, but yes.
Okay, and should Alvin Bragg be removed as Manhattan DA?
Well, not now, but I did a TV commercial saying he should be removed if he doesn't change his ways. I mean, he said that he would not prosecute resisting arrest and he would not prosecute armed robbery as a felony. He would only prosecute as a misdemeanor. So when he said that, I said, listen, if any DA said that and I was the governor, I would remove them. And the governor has the power to do that or has the power to replace them with the attorney general on those specific crimes. He has since changed his tune on that. So, I mean, he was elected. I wouldn't want to, removing elected officials is not something you do lightly. But if you're not going to enforce the law, I'm going to remove you. So the bottom line is I said, yes, I would remove him, but he has since changed his tune on that. So now it's no reason to remove him.
And I just have a follow-up question. The Democratic Party is very fractured right now, with many in the party taking more moderate positions, like yourself, while others take a far left position, particularly the DSA. As the de facto head of the party, how would you bring these factions together to achieve your goals? I've
been doing that my whole life. I'm good at that. So I think that the role of a leader is to take disparate voices and try and figure out how to find common ground, how to move forward. Like a lot of the agenda of the left, I believe in their goals. I believe that there's inequity that exists in society. I think there's a problem with climate. I think that there's people that are left behind in our system, but I don't like the way that they want to try and achieve to solve those problems. I believe in a lot of things the Republicans talk about. You know, the Republicans talk about crime and taxes. Those are my two number one issues, or first two issues. I didn't say that right. My number one and two issues are crime and taxes. Okay, you don't hear Democrats talking about crime and taxes that much, but you know what? Democrats care about crime and taxes too. So part of the job of being a leader in politics is to figure out how can you take all these disparate voices and try and find common ground to move forward. You can't say, I'm not going to work with you just because I disagree. Like, I don't agree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and a lot of stuff, but I applied for a grant from the federal government to get earmark for a SUNY maritime school to train the maritime students how to work on wind towers, you know, on the wind turbines. So, because that was jobs, high skilled jobs, and it was good for the environment. So I said, listen, I'll work with you on that because I believe in that too. So there's got to be more balance in our society of people working together. And you can't just write people off because they have a different opinion than you. We have to try and get people of good faith who are willing to sit down across from each other and try and find common ground. Every problem is complicated. You cannot solve complicated problems in an environment of fear and anger. You can only solve problems by getting people of goodwill to sit down to try and find common ground. I've been doing that my entire career, and I will always do that.
Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any closing remarks before we end?
I really believe in public service. I really believe in politics. I think it's a noble profession to try and solve problems and make the world a better place to live in. And I've been doing it for quite some time, and I'm risking it all to run for governor of New York State because I feel so strongly that this is such an important time in history. Right now, we're all watching what's going on in the Ukraine. And we just admire the people that are fighting so hard for freedom and democracy. Well, what is freedom and democracy? Freedom and democracy is politics. What we're doing right here tonight is what freedom, that's what people have gone to wars for, to die throughout our history, because so people can have a right to express themselves. And politics does not work unless there's competition, where people are battling each other saying, I've got a better idea than you. I can do it better than you can. I can do it faster, cheaper, more effectively. I can help more people. Unless you have that battle, it doesn't happen. And unfortunately, in New York State, for too long, it's been an insider's game, and it's all just fixed with the insiders. So I need the power of the people. So I hope if you're on this call tonight and you hear me and you say, boy, I like that guy, Tom Suozzi. He seems like a reasonable person. He's got a proven executive. He's a common sense Democrat. He cares about issues I care about, like crime and taxes and schools. I want to help that guy, Tom Suozzi. And I need you to tell your friends and tell your neighbors and spread the word and tell other people and help me with my people-centered campaign. If you hear me tonight and you say, I don't like Tom Suozzi. He's no good. He talks way too much. He talks too fast. I don't like his answers. I'm against Tom Suozzi. Then I ask you to please just keep it to yourself.
And actually, just two more things. I had some comments come into me on the chat. Tell us about your favorite lunch or your favorite subject in school.
Well, math was always my favorite because it was like, you know, there was an answer. You know, you could definitely like how to work, and you knew you had the answer when you had the answer. So I like that. But I guess I liked a lot of things in school. My favorite lunch, you know, I really used to like bologna, actually, and my wife won't let me eat bologna anymore. So I don't ever have bologna anymore. But I really like boar's head bologna on like rye bread with mustard. But my wife says she says, no way is that coming in our house. So.
Gotcha. One last question. I'm sorry. What was the best advice you gave your children?
Stick to your values and work hard and never give up.
Gotcha.
Stick to your values. If you stick to your values and try your best, it'll all work out. Whatever happens, happens.
Gotcha. Thank you again, Congressman Suozzi, for taking your time to speak to us. I want to hand off to the next moderator, my colleague, Alyssa O'Shea.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for doing this. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Congressman Suozzi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chu, is it?
Yes, Chu.
Thank you, Ms. Chu.
I'm sorry, Alyssa, are we still waiting for Lee Zeldin?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, I can talk some more. I'll keep on talking all night.
A couple minutes.
I want to insert myself. I'm Yatin Chu. I'm co-president of Place NYC. I worked with your campaign to get you onto this event, so I'm really happy to meet you. You are a fast talker, and you know, we had a bunch of questions and we covered it all. So I think we can talk about some of the other things that are going on, or something that's newsy that you want to, you know, until Lee Zeldin gets here.
Well, I want to I'll tell you what my overall philosophy is, okay, is that we have to find we have to find balance. So America is founded on two concepts, capitalism and democracy. Capitalism is the best economic system in the history of the world. It has lifted more people out of poverty. It's the best possible system there is. It's created more innovation, but it's based upon competition. The smarter you are, the harder working you are, the luckier you are, the stronger you are, the healthier you are, the better you're going to do. Some people in a competitive society, though, do not do well. Some people are bad competitors. Some people are like babies are not good competitors, okay? And senior citizens that are getting frail and elderly are not good competitors. And if you got hit by a car, you may not be a good competitor. Or, you got cancer, or you've got a mental illness. Some people just will not compete well based on a competitive society. We have another system called democracy. It says all men and women are created equal. So just because you're not a good competitor, you should not be relegated to a life of misery. So we're going to put protections in place in our society to make sure that those folks that are not good competitors can have a decent life, that they're not living in the cold, that they're not, not eating, that they're not have a chance to succeed in life. So the challenge of our society is to find a balance between these two systems on a knife's edge. Because if you go too far, all capitalism, you end up with people with really miserable life and other people with tremendous success and other people really unhappy. If you go too far, all men and women are created equal, you kill the economic engine that has lifted more people out of poverty and created innovation. So we have to find a balance between these two different things in our society. And it's like that with most issues, that you have to try and find a balance to try and live up to the ideals that we have. So that's like my overall philosophy.
I think those are really great advice and a great philosophy. A lot of things we talk about at Place NYC is very similar to that. We believe in merit-based admissions, but we also believe in providing as many opportunities for people and supports for students that need them to get them there. So, and that we shouldn't be giving kids participation awards when they're in high school. We need to instill in our children that working hard and putting in the effort counts. But there are children that need additional services, that have hardships in their family. And we do believe that those students need the additional help that our teachers and that our system should afford them. So we really appreciate those remarks. Your congressman colleague, Lee Zeldin, I see just got here. So
okay, Lee Zeldin's locker is right next to me in the gym. So I've seen Lee an awful lot in various states of undress.
Oh gosh, okay. All right. Thank you so much, Congressman Suozzi, for joining us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, and have a good night.
Thank you so much. Hello, Lee. Congratulations, Lee.
I'm not even going to pick up where you left off there, Tom. I'm just going to hope that everyone has a really short memory and we can move on with the conversation. Not picking it up on the gym locker talk. That's good. Keep him muted before he jumps in with more detail.
Well, hello. I'm going to be the moderator for this portion of the evening. My name is Elisa O'Shea, and I am a co-secretary for PLACE. I am also a parent leader in Queens, and I serve on a citywide council for education as well as my son's high school PTA. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce Congressman Lee Zeldin, who represents New York's 1st congressional district in the United States House of Representatives. Yesterday, in his hometown of Long Island, New York's Republican Party leaders endorsed U.S. Rep. Lee Zeldin as their candidate for governor. Congressman Zeldin, can you give us a brief introduction and tell us a little about yourself?
Great. Well, I'm really excited to be on with all of you. And I'm born and raised on Long Island, a lifelong New Yorker. I'm in my 19th year right now in the United States Army, 4 years on active duty. I've been in the Army Reserve for about 14 and a half years and serving right now in my 8th year, 4th term in Congress, and it's been a privilege to represent the 1st congressional district of New York. I am all in for this race for governor. I really truly believe that our state is at a breaking point right now. I feel it in my conversations, not just with Republicans or Democrats, not just with conservatives or moderates or liberals. Everybody wants to feel safe outside of their home. People want to see their freedom protected, the quality of their kids' education improved, their money to be able to go further. And unfortunately, a lot of people are fleeing the state and they're not looking back. And I feel like our government in many respects is failing us. Public service is about serving the public. We have some people in government who lust for power and control, and they believe that the public is there to serve them. I very strongly want to give people control of their government again. And I want them to feel like the attacks on their wallets are being reversed, the attacks on their safety and the quality of their kids' education are being reversed. And I'm going to work hard every day. I'm not going to take anything for granted. It's a big state of 62 counties. No county's too big or too small. I'm a parent. I have identical girls. They're 15 years old. And for them, for their generation, they don't get a vote, but the rest of us have to do our part to make sure that they're represented too. I'm very much looking forward to answering all of your questions. Thanks for having all of us on, and I'll turn it back over to you to be able to ask the questions.
Wow, you have twin 15-year-olds. I have one 15-year-old son, and he's a handful. I can't imagine two girls.
Well, actually, I just came across a couple. They had 11 kids, and they homeschooled all 11. Homeschooled them. So yeah, we have a lot, whatever kids we have in our life, but there are other parents out there that they have skills that I'm never going to make believe like I have. That's incredible.
So we're going to start off with a question on standards. New York spends more per pupil than any other state, but achieves results that many feel simply do not match this investment. Pupils' attainment in math and in ELA is a year to two behind the equivalents in other developed countries. How do we raise standards so that our children aren't left behind in the global market of the 21st century?
We have different aspects of education. Standards would be one component of it. We test our kids and we have curriculum. And unfortunately, what I believe we're seeing too much of is people aren't talking to each other. You have standards in many respects you're seeing nationally, tests in large part getting created by the state, curriculums in large part getting set by local school districts, and they're not working with each other. We teach kids oftentimes to the wrong test. It's bad enough to just always be teaching to the test. But in many respects, you see kids getting taught to the wrong test. I want to challenge all of our students to go as far as they possibly can in life. That means that we keep advanced academics. We don't get rid of gifted and talented programs in the name of equity. Every student who is capable of getting further advanced faster should be given every opportunity in the classroom to do that. If you're a third grader and you're reading at an eighth grade reading level, or you're doing math in eighth grade math level, you should be pushed and challenged, to be at the ninth grade level. If you could get there by December, the 10th grade level, if you could get there by March, and go even further. I also believe that at the start of a new school year, when we start testing our kids on material that they haven't even learned yet because the state wants data, that's wrong. You're setting the kids up to fail on material they haven't even learned yet. It's one thing if you want to teach kids based off of, if they're in the start of the eighth grade, teaching them on where they left off at the end of the seventh grade, just to see what they might have lost over the course of the summer. And the other thing is we have to keep the family structure strong. We need to encourage maximum parental involvement with education. And I also believe that some kids aren't on track to go to college, and that's okay. Not everybody will go to college. We need to get them hands-on equipment. If they're going to go on a tech track, get them a certificate, a degree, so that when they're graduating, they're able to be employable, more employable, connect them with trades jobs and make that handoff smooth. So there's a lot to talk about, but the basic point is, if you have 10,000 kids entering into a system, you want to create standards, tests, curriculum, that's all fine, but don't try to create a one-size-fits-all graduate. Let every kid reach their full potential wherever they're destined to go in life.
Okay, thank you. One of our focuses with PLACE is on the SH-SAT and specialized high schools. So the next question is about that topic. Do you support keeping the Hecht-Calandra law and using the SH-SAT as the sole metric for admissions to specialized high schools in New York City? And if not, what other criteria would you use?
I totally support it. I know there's a push by some to repeal it. It's ridiculous. I know Mayor de Blasio said that he had wanted to make New York City schools look like America, and he wasn't talking about the white kids. It's just important for us to reward success and hard work. And you have a system that's in place where people can, they sacrifice away their evenings and their weekends, and they're working as hard as they can to be the most exceptional kid in that class. Many kids right now, while we're having this conversation, are doing their homework tonight because they want to be able to excel on that next test. The idea that after working hard for years, that they're going to be punished, maybe because of their ethnicity, their race, their background, it's absolutely the wrong answer. And as far as the legislation that exists to change the law, I oppose it and I would veto it.
So professionally, I'm a member of New York City Hotel Trades Council. I'm a union member for about 10 years. As a parent, though, I've been disappointed how the teachers union in New York City handled school closures and COVID restrictions. So the question I have for you next is about the teachers union. The teachers union has had an outsized impact on school closures and COVID restrictions in the past 2 years. What role do you see yourself having with the teachers union?
First off, the priority has to be the kids, number one. Too much, especially because they don't have a vote, people in government just lose. They don't donate to campaigns. They're not out there mobilized as a group to go knock on doors. The kids need people in government to prioritize them first and foremost. That's what education is all about. Secondly, I believe in the parental right, that a mom, dad, they have the fundamental right to control the upbringing of their child. And just because you send your kid to school, you are not relinquishing that right to be in charge of your kid's upbringing. There are some in government and educators who are discouraging more parental involvement. Some believe, and they actually say out loud, if you want to be that involved in your kid's education, well, then why don't you just homeschool them? Well, the answer is, for many parents, they can't. Or maybe they want to send their kids to school so they could be around other kids. If you want to homeschool your kid, I want to see your kid set up for success. But if you want to send your kid off to school, you don't relinquish your right to be in charge of your kid's upbringing. And as far as education and educators go, we have a lot of great teachers, and we need to keep them in the teaching profession. We need to recruit more good teachers. We need to recruit teachers to be willing to take on the toughest assignments in the toughest schools. My mother's a retired special education teacher. I've been with her in the classroom. She retired a long time ago. And it was exceptionally challenging, each kid to the kid, the very diverse needs that each of them had. My father's mother is a retired teacher. My father's father was a teacher. I'm proud of our teachers. With that being said, the teachers' unions are being run by political operatives. They want to have their VIP access at the next national convention for a party. They want power and perks. They prioritize advocacy for policies that lead to 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in masks. All of our kids, just today is the first day that most of the state, our kids are able to go to school and see their classmates smiling. My daughters, as I mentioned, they're 15, they're 10th grade, they're almost halfway through high school. And today is the first day since middle school that they're able to see the smiles on their classmates. The teachers union was pushing for remote learning. I'm totally opposed to that. I'm all for kids when they need extra help. They have a question with a homework assignment. They want to get a tutor. They want to find ways to challenge themselves outside of the classroom. Well, that's amazing to be able to have that desire to improve yourself that much further outside of the normal school day. But people who are running these teachers unions, who are advocating for mask mandates, advocating for closed schools, remote learning, keeping kids out of classrooms, the extracurriculars, when they didn't need to. It was unscientific. Kids ending up missing out on graduations and other significant milestones that they can't have back. One of my daughters went through early intervention. The idea that, you know, some kid might be on the autism spectrum and they're learning how to speak and a teacher can't see their face. They can't see the teacher's face. They're going through this key moment of development in their life and they can't even see their fellow classmates or their teachers' faces. I blame those in leadership at the teachers union who are advancing these policies. They were advocating for them and they were absolutely wrong. But what I don't do when I point this out is I don't want to paint all teachers with one broad brush like that, because thank God we have teachers. There would be no classroom, there would be no education if we didn't have good people stepping up.
So you expressed your opinion on the mask mandates. In New York City, my child is still wearing a mask in the classroom this week.
Yeah, and by the way, I put that on social media today. And while I was commending that the rest of the state, they took the masks off, I specifically stated that in New York City, that mandate needs to be removed instantly. There's no reason for this to still be existing in New York City. This should have gone away a very, very long time ago.
Can I do a follow-up question and ask, how do you feel about vaccine mandates in the schools?
Totally opposed. I do not believe the state legislature should pass this bill requiring to get the shot in order to attend classes in the fall. This is a decision for a parent. I believe in parental consent too. There are some in our country who believe that there should be a system in place for kids to get vaccinated without their parents even knowing about it. I believe in informed consent. I believe that dialogue helps build trust. But right now, the legislature is considering a bill that would require people to get the COVID shot in order to attend classes in the fall. I am absolutely 100% totally opposed to that bill.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little and ask a bit about crime. As crime stats continue to rise in New York, tourism and economy continue to be impacted, including the industry that I work in, the hospitality industry. If elected, what actions will you take to combat the sharp upward trend of crime in New York City, given that the state Senate isn't interested in changing the bail reform that was passed in recent years, and the newly elected DA has not demonstrated a commitment to prosecuting many crimes? Would you use the powers of the governor to remove Alvin Bragg as Manhattan DA?
The New York governor has the constitutional authority to remove district attorneys who refuse to enforce the law. I would, on day one, fire Alvin Bragg for his refusal to enforce the law. I also believe that we should be repealing cashless bail. Mayor Adams is advocating for judges to have discretion to weigh dangerousness, and I agree with him. I believe that judges should have the discretion to weigh dangerousness, flight risk, seriousness of the offense, past criminal record when deciding to set bail. This issue is personal for me. I grew up in a law enforcement household. I believe that our streets should be turned back over to law-abiding citizens as opposed to our streets and our subways belonging to criminals. I think that right now we're handcuffing justice too much as opposed to handcuffing those who are breaking the law. I picked Allison Esposito. I asked her to be my running mate as our next lieutenant governor. She's a commanding officer of the 7-0 in Brooklyn. Her father is NYPD Chief Michael Esposito. She spent about 25 years in law enforcement. She would have been a chief herself, but she knows how important this is. And I'm very grateful that she accepted this invitation to join this ticket. And I think that she's going to be an exceptional lieutenant governor being involved in this policy. I believe inside of our subways, there needs to be more law enforcement, more lighting. It needs to be cleaner. And you need to have a higher standard of excellence throughout the entire system. I believe that this push for lethal injection sites in New York City was the wrong answer. Totally opposed to that. I don't think that should spread anywhere else inside of the city. I support enacting a law enforcement Bill of Rights, recognize the inherent right of self-defense of law enforcement. I oppose the defund the police movement. I believe that they should have all of the tools and resources that they need to do their jobs safely and effectively. Our current Lieutenant Governor, Brian Benjamin, was a champion of the Defund the Police movement in Albany. You can actually say he was the champion of the Defund the Police movement. We need to all work together to take back over our streets. All New Yorkers need to feel safe on our streets. I was in Brooklyn for a vigil for Christina Lee. Christina was murdered, stabbed to death inside her Lower Manhattan apartment. At this vigil, we were not just talking about one young victim life taken too long, too early. There was another woman who was pushed in front of an oncoming subway car and lost her life. There was another person who was beaten to death with rocks. The violence, whether you're wearing a yarmulke on your head, I'm Jewish. I see people getting attacked with violent anti-Semitism, and that needs to be stopped. I have an Asian American wife. It's personal for us as we see the Asian American community targeted with violence. Both my wife and I and our kids, we were at a Sikh temple a couple weekends ago where they have cab drivers who are getting attacked. And that's hatred targeting them because they may be a little different than the person who is perpetrating the offense. So we need to all rise up and combat this hate whenever it rears its ugly head in all of its forms. It's very telling. It's one thing when someone's willing to put out a tweet, a statement. By the way, that's better than nothing, but we need more than that. We need more than statements. But what's very telling are the people who can't even tweet anymore. They can't even show up at a press conference. They can't even stand with us to call out this hate because they're worried about some of their voters turning on them. And those people, I believe, should be fired from office.
So the Democrats currently have supermajorities in both state houses, and at the very least are expected to maintain wide majorities after the 2022 elections. As a Republican, how would you work with the state house?
First off, I do believe that the supermajorities will be broken. It's most likely to be broken in the state Senate. It could very well be broken in both the Senate and the Assembly. But I don't believe that there's going to be a supermajority Senate and Assembly come January. In the House of Representatives, Georgetown University and the Lugar Center does their annual bipartisan index ranking all 435 members of the House based on bipartisanship. In 2020, the last year that was out, they haven't come out with their ratings yet for last year. But in 2020, for that calendar year, I was ranked number 19. For the calendar year 2019, I was ranked 12th out of 435. Now, I believe that we should stand up and speak out on what we believe in. Debate, disagreement, that's okay. That's a protected American principle. I don't want to silence my critics where they can't have a social media account, where they can't have a voice, they can't be heard. I believe in my ideas, my values strongly enough where I believe that you should be able to share your ideas. Let's debate it and let's have the best idea win. I have been able to get victories over the finish line back to my time when I was in the state Senate. I was in a Republican Senate, a Democrat Assembly. There was a Democrat governor. I got almost 50 bills passed and signed into law, bills that are still making a positive impact today. So as governor, it is about using the leverage that you have between the executive budget and home rule messages, showing up into districts, having press conferences, rallying support. It's about working with people on both sides of the aisle in both houses to try to find common ground however possible. That doesn't mean that we're going to agree on everything, and that's okay. And I also believe that we need to empower more of the rank and file of the legislature, because right now everything gets done 3 people in a room. That is absolutely not the way that I would allow our government to be run. That is the norm, and that needs to be a distant memory in the past. Never again should we be running our state this way, where you basically have emperors lusting power and control, where they're not even sharing power with even their state legislators, even in their own party. They just expect them to vote the party line with whatever agreement they worked out behind closed doors.
I have one last political question for you, and then we're going to move on to a lightning round. While you have acknowledged that Joe Biden is our president, you were on record objecting to the certification of results of the 2020 election. Do you think former President Trump is correct that there was widespread fraud and the end results were not definitive?
Well, first off, there was issues with the 2020 election, but that's not specific to just the 2020 election. And I'll just give you an example. My own first congressional district of New York, forget about even talking nationally. In my district, there were hundreds of ballots that were thrown out in New York 1 because the signatures didn't match. In New York 1 in 2020, there were people arrested because they were requesting absentee ballots for dead relatives. Our race wasn't close. If it was close, there were hundreds of other objections that judges would have ended up throwing out additional ballots because the signatures didn't end up matching. I am looking forward, though. I'm not looking backwards. And I believe that regardless of whether it's 2022, 2023, 2024, that we all need to, regardless of whether or not your candidate comes in first or second, we should always welcome conversations on how to improve election integrity. And we might have different ideas on how to accomplish that. I will tell you that I personally support voter ID. Maybe there's people on the call who disagree with me. Maybe some agree with me. That's okay. But that's my personal position. I disagree with New York City's new law to allow 800,000 non-citizens to vote in next year's local election. But these are examples of going forward where we should have conversations. But as far as elections in the past, I actually can't point to any election where there hasn't been issues. And we should have that conversation to figure out how to always improve the system.
Okay, thank you. I would now like to move on to a lightning round. So if you could, keep your answers to a yes or no, but if not, maybe to a sentence or two. I just have 10 brief questions. The first one, do you support lifting the charter school cap?
Yes, I support totally removing it. I believe, by the way, so the short answer is yes, it's a lightning round. But I just want to let you know that, this is a limitless potential question.
Okay, the second question is pretty timely. Do you support mayoral control of New York City schools?
I do. If some local mayor decides that they want to infringe on a parental right to control the upbringing of a child, if there's a need to intervene on behalf of parent and child, that can end up motivating me highly to get involved in the quality of education in a local school district. The short answer is yes, absolutely. But you can't infringe on rights.
Okay. Third question, should all school districts screen children for gifted and talented programs, essentially moving to an opt-out instead of an opt-in model?
Yes.
Okay. The fifth question, near and dear to my heart, because I commute, do you support congestion pricing?
I don't.
Okay. Sixth question.
No, I'm sorry. No. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to follow the rules here. Sorry, I gave you a 2-word answer on that one.
It's okay. Should CUNY be free for all?
No, I don't believe that. I believe that there are people who are in a position where they can afford to pay for college. I went through the SUNY system myself. When you have an ability to pay, that's fine. I mean, keep tuition affordable for everybody. You need to keep the quality of education high. I don't believe that that higher education should be free for everybody.
Okay, this is a personal one. What was your favorite subject in grade school?
Math.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry, lunch. Gym.
Oh no, you can't say lunch.
After lunch and gym, my third answer would be math.
Okay, so the eighth question, do you support keeping the Regents exams as a means to graduate high school?
I do, but if anybody has ideas on how to improve this, I think that this is a long overdue conversation. Regents is a program that is in place right now. Our kids are being educated for regents. But I come into this position with a totally open mind on ways to improve the regents' exams and that whole process. By the way, I have a totally open mind on any ideas to improve anything.
Well, we're going to hold you to that, so be careful what you tell the place people. The ninth question, should the school year be extended?
Should the school year be extended? I don't think so. I think it's important. I'm all for having strong families, strong core nuclear families to the maximum extent possible. Listen, some of our kids who are struggling the most don't have that. But the idea of, in the military, the saying is work hard, play hard. We want our kids to work very hard during the school year. If they need extra help during the summer, to get them that extra help. If kids want to be challenged for extra education in the summer, that's fantastic. But I also want our kids to be kids. I'm all for a well-rounded education, a well-rounded upbringing, and most importantly, a very strong nucleus of a family to the maximum extent possible.
So I hope this final lightning round doesn't get you in trouble, but what is your favorite pizza parlor in Long Island?
Oh man, gosh, I don't have a favorite, and that's not a yes/no question, by the way.
It's not.
By the way, I refuse to answer this question because it's not a properly formed question.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sure you have somebody on speed dial for Friday night. You know what I'm saying? But when you don't feel like cooking. Okay, well,
I only agree to answer yes/no questions in this lightning round.
Okay, well, that concludes my questions that we have for you this evening. But if you would like to take a minute and give some concluding remarks, please do.
Well, I really appreciate the time and the invite. I'd be grateful to earn your support. I would like to be able to get together in person. Zoom is great substitute. I happen to be in DC right now, so getting together in person would have been quite a commute for all of you for this visit. But I'm spending a lot of time inside of New York, obviously a lot of time inside New York City and all the 5 boroughs. So follow up, being able to have a good open dialogue, a good open relationship, being able to work closely on improving the quality of education for our kids. This is very important to me. It's a very, very top campaign issue. I would say right now, crime and public safety and education are the top 2 issues for us in this campaign. There's a lot to do. The solutions are not that difficult. And I look forward to hitting the ground running with a day one that you would be very proud of.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm going to turn it back over to Youten to give any concluding remarks. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Congressman Zeldin, and thank you everyone for joining our event tonight. And I want to thank the moderators, Craig and Heidi and Lisa. Great job. It's tough to do it, and these are seasoned politicians, but I think you held them to their answers and kind of pushed it a little bit, which I think our audience appreciate. We are going to continue to stay engaged in the primary elections and certainly all the way through to November. As Lee Zeldin shared, we would hope that we can bring to you in-person events. I know elected officials and candidates love to do that because they create a relationship with us and a relationship with you as their possible constituents. So we'll look forward to doing that as a lot of the mandates are being lifted and people feel more comfortable and free to meet in person. So we're coming up to our 8:30. I know most of you all of you probably are parents. And thank you so much for taking an hour and a half out of your evening today to be with us. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you so much.